Hello, fans. This is another Friday morning episode of Inside the Lines. And this week, you better get your coats, your hot chocolate, whatever, coffee in general, because it is a cold evening in the state of Tennessee. Because right now, it's either win or go home for a lot of teams across the state of Tennessee, also. And the band better be ready because you might see a lot of touchdowns being played across the state as well. So, my first guest this week, we're going to do like a special recap with Cameron Reid from 615 Preps. Cameron, welcome to the show Inside the Lines.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me, and excited to recap the action from last week, and look forward to this week too.
Cameron, first of all, I want your thoughts on the whole state of Tennessee. You don't have to give me like a whole breakdown of the state of Tennessee, but early on, like quick glance of the season so far from the whole state. To me, this is one of the state's best years of high school football across the state because anybody can win the gold ball this year in general.
Yeah, I think the transparency this year has been really really good. I think that there's no real dominant team, maybe Alcoa, but other than that, across the board in each classification, it's pretty much anybody's ball game at this point.
Yeah, especially the way right now. I think we're going to talk about it here later on with the preview of like who's playing and whatnot. But look at Westview, man. They're scoring points with a true freshman quarterback. Yes, and that's Ty Simpson's brother, the Alabama quarterback brother, and he's only a true freshman. So for a true freshman to throw over 600 yards in one game in this in his first play in a regular season environment like that against Covington in last week of the regular season, what accomplishment by him.
Yeah, and as good of an accomplishment that is, the more eye popping accomplishment, in my opinion, is through the regular season. He had 43 touchdowns and zero interceptions as a freshman.
And he's definitely up for Mr. Football. So yeah, he definitely has that award play. In all seriousness, I think he's going to win because look at his numbers, like you just brought up. Nothing against Skyland Smith, but I think to be honest with you, this year in general, when you have a true freshman out there that throws 43 touchdowns, like you brought up, and zero picks, he definitely deserves that award right off the bat.
Yeah, I would agree that he's probably should he would be the favorite in my clubhouse as well. And as I said on our show when we were talking about Mr. Football candidates, it won't be the last one.
All right, let's do a quick recap. I know we'll do your game here in a minute, but what's your thoughts on the 1A recap with Union City 50, Middle College 12? I want to say, first of all, Coach Staples and his gang in Middle College had a great season, but to go to an environment like Union City, that's a tough order in general. I know because one is experience. So, what can you tell me about? I want your thoughts on a team basically driving 2 3 hours and whatnot on a game day. What's their mentality as you see it across the state? What's their mentality on game day when they got to drive 2 3 hours on a good environment in general, like Union City was?
Yeah, most of the time on those type of trips, the coaches that I've been able to talk to, they like to go. If it's a 3 hour bus ride, they want to leave 6 to 7 hours early before game time, so that way that they can stop somewhere and have lunch and really have team bonding, and it's not as much of a toll just to hop off the bus and play, so to speak. So I think that that's a big advantage. But one thing we've seen with these big long trips is the teams that have been there before are the teams that are having those more successful trips on those long road trips. And I think a lot of it has to do with they know how to plan around it, they know what to expect, and it really is a big factor when it comes time as we get later in the playoffs and the road
Mhm.
trips tend to get longer.
South Fulton 24, Mace 44. So congratulations to Coach Cedric Miller. They get to host Union City today, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. 2A NBA 28, Mitchell 8. Fairleigh keeps on running through it. 44 nothing over Hillcrest. 3A Covington 70, Bolivar 6. We brought up Scalvin Smith and J.R. Kirby just a few minutes ago. They like to run the football, and it definitely showed this past week. 4A Melrose 33, Haywood 25. Kind of an interesting development in that game. Murrow, the running back slash quarterback now from Melrose, played a little bit of quarterback action this past week for the Melrose Golden Wildcats and get that huge win over Haywood 25. And the player that you're probably familiar with is Caden Harris from Haywood as well, as he's pretty much looking at every school in general these days in D1.
Yeah, super talented. They also have Camarion Miller over there. That's a really good running back. That's a game where it was. We started to pick every game statewide last week, and that was a game that we went 50-50 on.
Mm-hmm.
And rightfully so. We thought that would be a good ball game, and it was.
6A, Bartlett 10, Houston 17, Carterville 24, Germantown 0. What was your two thoughts on that game? Were you kind of surprised that Chandler Day actually played in that game against Bartlett?
So I think the biggest thing is with that whole 6A region down there. Last year, Houston kind of rolled everybody for the most part. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they were the clear cream of the crop in that region. And that region this year, there's been such transparency, as I was saying earlier, that it was so hard to pick those games last week, and not knowing, the injury status of players and that sort of thing. It made it a lot more difficult to pick those games. But Houston making their run and winning it all last year probably gave them the advantage over a really good Bartlett team.
And then Carterville 24, Germantown 0. Are you shocked? Oh, surprised the way that or not Germantown, but Carterville dominated kind of this year in the league per se, also because a lot of people predicted them not even to make the playoffs in general this year. They thought White Station maybe could have surprised some people, but I'm like, have y'all not looked at anybody's coaching background? Because one, Joe Riccone has always been a winner everywhere he's been, the head coach at Carterville, and then two, I also want to say this: the non-conference schedule that he puts together always gets these guys ready for the postseason, also, and regular season as well with the district. So you kind of surprised that Carterville kind of dominated this year.
To a certain extent, yeah. I mean, you don't see teams lose what most people would consider their most talented player in Jakeem Dotson, and then be better than they were last year. And they are better than they were last year. And Dotson, of course, is at Baylor and Chattanooga. So it was a little bit. It is surprising to see them here in the quarterfinals. But as you said, their non-region schedule was really tough. They come up to Hendersonville, and they have the only win over the Beach Buccaneers this year, which is in the 5A quarterfinals. So really good football team, and Houston's going to have to play their A game.
Okay, Boyd 42, Lausanne 13. Long story short, 6 hour bus drive on the same day of a football game is just totally different. Like you brought up earlier, you gotta break it up a little bit in general, and I think to be honest with you, you don't see that very often in private schools that much anymore. Where when I was like in my early 20s, mid 20s, I got to see a lot of teams break it up in years past where they drove 3 hours the day before a game and then did like a walkthrough at like Austin P or Tennessee Tech or somebody like that. And then they would drive the rest of the 3 hours as well. But Lausanne had a little bit of bus issues also along the way. So that might have been a little bit of a factor. But Boyd Buchanan in Chattanooga is pretty good too for a reason, though.
Yeah, they have arguably the greatest high school football coach in Tennessee high school history in Gary Rankin. And when he took that job 2 years ago, a lot of us were pretty much saying it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because that dude is a legend in his own right, and he's gonna win a gold ball at Boyd Buchanan before it's all over with.
And then you got Baylor 45, MUS 6. It just came down to, like I brought up last week, the more depth, more skilled players, and also more experience. Like they've been there before because MUS was a young team this year in general.
Yeah, and that Baylor program and Macaulay's the same way. They're just calling it what it is. They have a slight advantage over the rest of D2 AAA because they're able to board kids there on school grounds. So that's why you see the amount of Canadians and foreign players from outside of the state of Tennessee that come in to play at those schools. But at the end of the day, they are TWA says they're good, so you got to go beat them, and they're a really good football team.
Then the game that you got to cover, Beach 49, Southwind 19. You got to see Mr. Kelvin Perkins and company and the Southwind Jaguars and Coach Griffin. What was your thoughts on Southwind on this season and not also the season, but just as a team in general?
Kelvin Perkins is a real deal. That was my biggest takeaway. I know some other people have compared him to Lamar Jackson, and I can see it. I think that the big difference between last year's Southwind team and this year's Southwind team is in the trenches. I thought that Beach was able to control the line of scrimmage and kind of impose their will later on in the second half. One key part of that game, Beach scores right before the half. Beach gets the ball first in the second half. Beach scores in 42 seconds to come out of the half, and at that point they're up 28-7, and the game kind of changed at that point. Another note was Kelvin Perkins when he come out of the locker room at halftime had a softball sized tape job on his left ankle, so got banged up there at some point in the first half, and that kind of limited his mobility in the second half. And once Beach got that lead, it really made Southwind one dimensional. So it was hard to mount a comeback.
Yeah, you brought up the running game for Beach, and I think the running game was definitely the factor. Beach is a smash mouth football team. They do like to throw it at times, but also like a running team. And also, ever since when I saw them, well, I didn't get to see them personally, but I saw the highlights against Bartlett in that 6A. I think it was semifinal under Coach Tucker and whatnot. Only had Coach Tucker as the football coach. I felt like Beach has the numbers, they have the athleticism, they've been there before, and also that environment we just brought up, like Union City's environment, Beach's environment for a football game is second to none as well.
Yeah, it's a great environment. I'll be back there again tonight. Shackle Island is a great place to watch a football game if you've never been. And when Beach is rolling, the train horn is as loud as you're going to find, and the atmosphere and the hospitality is top notch. They treat you like you're part of the family. They'll invite you over for their tailgate. It's great people, great environment. Super excited to be back over there. But we talked about Kelvin Perkins being Lamar Jackson. Well, Beach has got a quarterback that doesn't really have anybody. Maybe Jared Lorenzen, if you're a Kentucky fan. The kid's 6'4", 260 pounds, and is a wrecking ball at quarterback. So
260 pounds.
yeah,
Next Jared Lorenzen out? No, no, no. In all seriousness, next Jared Lorenzen out there?
pretty much. He's 6'4", 260. And he's a great athlete. He's committed to go play at Kentucky as a baseball player. So
Oh wow, Kentucky! Like he could easily be a first baseman slash pitcher then maybe down the road.
right,
Wow. All right, let me just get your thoughts on your game that you said you're covering as a rivalry game for a reason this week. Beach hosting another playoff game. I'm not going to ask you
yeah.
to do a prediction since you're covering it, but it very well. Do you think this game could be like a low scoring affair due to the weather?
I think it's going to be whoever plays their game better, if that makes sense. Beach wants it to be that smash mouth type of game. Springfield actually throws it around a little bit more, so they could try to drag Beach into a shootout, and if that happens, I think that favors Springfield. But if it is a low scoring, physical, run the football type of game, that is Beach's mo this year. That's what they want to do. That would definitely favor the Bucks.
All right, let's start with this 1A matchup: Union City at Mace. How do you see that one coming out in West Tennessee?
You got a really super athletic team in Mace, really good linebackers, which is very important when playing against the offense like Union City that does all that misdirection and power run game. I think it's going to be a very close game, but I did pick Union City.
I got you. Yeah, for them to it's the same thing to driving. You know, they said you got to break it up to drive a little bit to get these guys like a mill in, and then do a walkthrough or something like that. NBA at Memphis Business Academy at Fairleigh. I think Fairleigh kind of the game's gonna be competitive. I think for at least a half, and I think it comes down to Fairleigh's been there before also, and I think they dominate in the second half.
Yeah, Fairleigh is a super athletic team as well, and they've kind of dominated all year. So they're kind of a wild card that in 2A there where whoever wins that Milan and Huntington game, um, has got their work cut out for them next week.
3A, we talked about this a few minutes ago. Westview playing Covington in rematch of the regular season championship. I think this game is really going to be a down to the wire type ball game again. It could go down to like a field goal, but maybe not as that many as high scoring this time around because if I'm Coach Kirby, I'm going to have like a 9-minute playbook in me and control that clock in that first quarter or second quarter or third quarter or fourth quarter. Take any chance you can get and take advantage of it. I know your offense might be a little bit tired, but you better control that clock, buddy.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. I think that's exactly what Covington's got to do. Westview in the regular season game was able to win a lot of one-on-one matchups out on the edges and really lean on their wide receiver core, which is very underrated. You know, Graham Simpson gets all the credit, but they have a really good wide receiver core. But Covington is they play that brand of football similar to Beach and some of these other run heavy teams, Union City, uh, that this is the time of the year when they get better because teams don't want to tackle a physical runner like Skyland Smith. They don't want to tackle that kid 30 times. And that is exactly what will have to happen if Westview wants to win. I think Covington's key to winning is exactly what you said. Limit the possessions, control the time of possession, and ultimately you got to finish drives if you're going to do that. And that's the keys to victory for Covington. I
Mm-hmm.
did pick Covington in this game because Graham Simpson did throw for 600 yards and 8 touchdowns in the first game. Great credit for him. What happens if he don't throw for 600 yards? Covington wins that football game.
And also, he's a freshman, so they can put pressure on him that we don't know about yet, and you never know. It could get him rattled a little bit too because it's actually the first high school real playoff environment per se as well. Because we know Covington's going to travel in this game in general. 4A Dyer County Choctaws at Melrose. Melrose better bring the fans because me and you know Dyer County likes to travel no matter what sport in general.
Yeah, Dyer County is one of those programs pretty much all the way across baseball, basketball, football. They always bring a good crowd. And they're always they haven't seemed to get over the hump yet, but they always are playing. Seem like they're playing here in the quarterfinals. So that historically they're a pretty good football program, and as I said, they're trying to get over that hump and get to the semifinals and potentially make their way to Chattanooga.
Then 5A, we don't have nobody local here in general, but are you going to be seeing any upsets in 5A? Not really. It's not really upset because it's just third round of playoffs and whatnot. But can you see like an Oak Ridge playing at East Hamilton pull the upset?
For sure, I think because both of those teams tend to play the lower scoring games, and when you play a low scoring game like that, the amount of space that you have for mistakes gets so minuscule that it is one play can change the game at that point.
Real quick, what's your thoughts on that Pearl Conan at Marshall County matchup? Because the winner of that one plays Dyer County or Melrose.
It's such a hard matchup to read. They played the first game with pretty much in a mud pit. It was raining the whole game, and Marshall County plays at the city park fields.
Hmm.
And it was field conditions were pretty bad, but both teams had to play in it. Marshall County wins a nail biter in overtime, 24-21. Um, yeah, it's going to be similar style of play as far as I think it's a lower scoring game for both of these teams. Each possession is important. I think it's a one score game either way.
The Battle of Murfreesboro 6A. Riverdale Warriors travel to Oakland Patriots. I know Oakland had a tough game. They won the game though last week. Maybe were they looking ahead for a couple weeks with the state championship on the line? You never really know with kids these days. So Riverdale at Oakland. I think that game. Maybe Oakland due to the experience they've been there before. We're not can beat Riverdale, but I think that game's gonna be like a low scoring affair in this one.
It definitely could be. One thing last week, Dewan Morris has announced his presence in 6A for this season. He got hurt earlier in the season, missed a big chunk of the season, or else he's probably Mr. Football in 6A. And last week he come back and he showed that he was healthy. which is not a good thing for everybody else in 6A. He went for 220 yards, 4 touchdowns, had a 99-yard kickoff return, had all 5 touchdowns for Oakland last week in a 35-28 to win. Um, but yeah, Riverdale's a really good football team, really good up front. I think they'll have the advantage up front. But I think Oakland's playmakers are going to make just enough plays to get the Patriots to the semifinals.
Yeah, Bearden at Maryville, the battle of the 865. Knoxville football at its best over there in East Tennessee. Really toss up. I think that game could go either way. Stewart's Creek at Ravenwood. What about that one?
Yeah, Stewart's Creek's a team that's enjoying the best season in school history. First time ever being in the quarterfinals. They do have to go on the road to Ravenwood, though, and this Ravenwood team is very good. They've handed that Oakland team their only loss of the season, a 32-31 game in overtime. Um, the Ravenwood runs a 2 quarterback system. They want to throw the ball. They have talent out wide. They have good running backs. They're really big up front. Um, Really good football team that the Raptors have. I think that they have the advantage over Stewart's Creek, but this Stewart's Creek team has shown all year that they are a feisty bunch, and they want to drag Ravenwood into a dogfight.
Another rivalry game. Get there early. Get there 2-3 hours before. Tailgate. Enjoy the atmosphere. Have a fire pit if they allow it, but I heard that they do. But Collierville at Houston rivalry game in the 901. I'm not doing no predictions here. I got friends on both staffs. Joe, one of them being the head coach at Collierville. I got so many friends on that Houston staff as well, so I'm not going to do no prediction. I just hope it's a clean football game. Uh, Basically, everybody stay injury free in that game as well, and Chandler Day better stay healthy as well in that game because I know he has a future bright in the University of Tennessee for baseball. So, no prediction here, but who you got?
Yeah, so that game in the regular season was a 17-13 win for Houston. Um, when I was picking that game this week for our picks, I really had to think to myself, and I went back on the old logic, right? To beat the champion is the champion until they're eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
With Houston in this game, but I do think it's going to be a really good football game. And as you said, Chandler Day, his ability to stay on the field is probably going to be the difference.
Okay, then we got two double A or 2A. I'm sorry, National Christian at Jackson Christian. That game is the battle of the Christians schools, and I think to be honest with you, it's going to be one of those tough matchups for both teams. Too too hard to pick that game to be honest with you. Jackson Christian got playmakers, and so is Nashville Christian.
Yeah, and this is not a slight at Columbia Academy or DCA, but I think this game is the state championship game in D2 Single A.
Mm-hmm.
It just so happens that they matched up on the same side of the bracket in the semifinals. Jackson Christian has one of the best wide receivers in the state in Jalen Mosley. Um, look for Nashville Christian probably to double him. And of course, Nashville Christian has Jared Curtis, number 4 overall recruit in the 26 class. And they also have TJ Ward, that's a kid that nobody has talked about, that just became eligible in week 9 of the season. He's a transfer from McGavick, a 6A school in Metro Nashville. He's a really good ball player, 3-star recruit. So the ability Nashville Christian has to run and pass, I think that favors them to pull out a game that could very well turn into a shootout.
Yeah, DCA at Columbia Academy. I think that game's a toss up too. Columbia Academy, although they haven't really been there before, I think they can probably win this game. Although because the game's at home.
Yeah, I think so. They beat DCA 28-7 in the regular season, but this is another tale of two teams that want to do opposite things. Columbia Academy wants to run the football. DCA wants to throw the football, and they have a really good quarterback in Mitchell Carey. 4-star tight end Carson Sneed that's going to Tennessee. They got another receiver that's approaching 1,500 yards on the season with Grayson Scragg. So, really good matchup there. And like I said, no slight to either one of those teams. I think the winner of the Nashville Christian Jackson Christian game should be the favorite to win D2 Single A.
Do double A playoffs. BGA at FRA. BGA pulls it out. I'm guessing.
Man, that's going to be a really, really tight game. FRA was able to beat them in the regular season. FRA's kind of had a season that was not expected. They graduated a lot off last year's semifinal team. Mike Hassel, running back junior for them, has had a really good season. They also have a big sophomore lineman that's going to wind up playing Division One football for a Power Four team. So FRA is at home, and that is a big advantage.
Mm-hmm.
BGA does have Bobby Bentley, but I picked FRA this week in our picks just because FRA did make it to the semifinals last year. BGA has not been to this point in a long time, so I think the experience level for FRA gets them a win.
Okay, do double A playoffs, another matchup. You brought up the coaching already for Boyd Buchanan at CPA. Battle the great coaching on both sidelines in this one. CPA Lions going back to the state championship game.
Yeah, I think so. CPA is not as big and physical as they were last year, which was a clear advantage over Boyd in the state championship game. But their dynamic offense, their offense is more dynamic this year than it was last year. Last year they were a physical run game. This year they can run the ball, but they also have great receivers in Knox McLean and Owen Cable. Owen Cable is going to be a big time SEC receiver. He's a 4-star receiver. He's got a Georgia offer. Yeah, he's going to be a really good player for CPA for this year and next year. He's just a junior. But yeah, I like CPA to win a closer game than the state championship game, but still probably 2 to 3 scores.
Do Division Two Triple A. The last two games of the slate are Chattanooga McCallie at Nashville Innsworth. The battle of SEC, it feels like in this one because they both had teams on SEC caliber that are definitely looking at some SEC schools in general as well. And I think could the Hasselback coaching and the Hasselback quarterback pull Innsworth in that state championship game in general too?
Yeah, I did pick Ainsworth to win this game. I do think it's going to be super close. One thing we've seen with McCallie in 2 other games this season, when they play a team that has a really, really sound defense, they tend to struggle. And if that happens and this game stays in the 20s, that's exactly where it's got to be for Ainsworth to win this game. And I think Ainsworth just makes enough plays at home to win a really close game. You mentioned the stud athletes, and it will be a SEC type of environment and SEC type feel with the amount of athletes that's on the field on both sides. Key playmaker for Ainsworth that they need to make a few big plays, Justin Hopkins. Everybody wants to talk about Ethan Utley, and he's a great defensive lineman that's going to Tennessee. But Justin Hopkins has been the difference maker for that Ainsworth team this year, and he's got to make us some plays tonight if the Tigers want to make it to Chattanooga.
All right, the final game, Brentwood Academy at Baylor. Let's just be real. Nothing against Brentwood Academy for going this far. I think it's just Chattanooga Baylor's year to win it all. To be honest with you, I think they got, like you brought up, Joakim Dotson, who scored on the first play of the game last week against MUS. They got more speed against the Eagles, so that's one reason I think Chattanooga Baylor pulls it out in this one.
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup. 7-6 Baylor win in the regular season. That was a game where the wind was blowing about 35 miles an hour. Brentwood Academy had 2 chances in the fourth quarter to go down and kick a field goal to win the game, and just couldn't quite get into field goal territory. That was a game where George McIntyre threw for like 270 yards, but Baylor ran the ball for like 300. So it was a style contrast type game, and I think it's more of the same. Don't be surprised if that is a 1-score game again, though. Brentwood Academy has made so many improvements from last year's 2-8 season, and that's a testament to another great football coach in Paul Wade.
Right.
But yeah, George McIntyre is going to sling that thing. It's just a matter of can the Brentwood Academy defense get enough stops.
Cameron, appreciate your insight as always. Cameron, my last 2 questions, real quick. Do you think the state championship stay in Chattanooga, or do you think they'll eventually go back to Murfreesboro since you're kind of neck of the woods, or do you see them just staying in Chattanooga?
Having some conversations with some people in the background and some people with a certain organization that is right here in the 615. I think the state championship games will wind up being where they should have been the whole time. and I think they will be played in Nashville.
So you think about back to Vanderbilt, or
When the stadium's built, they will be played at the Tennessee Titans Stadium. If I was a betting man,
very interesting news there because I think also. Do you think it's just they're just trying to get more people to go, or do you think they're just gonna? What's the reason behind that one?
it's all of the above. You know, it's better for travel expenses for teams. It's better for um, the city of Nashville with all the hotels right there that's going to be around the stadium. It's
Okay,
about the bettering the experience for the kids, and that's not a knock on UTC or Tennessee Tech or Murfreesboro or Vanderbilt. But to be able to play, you played for the state championship inside the Tennessee Titans new stadium. You know that's a really cool factor to add into that. And if you look at some of these other schools, guess what? They play their state championships at their NFL stadium. So,
aka Texas, right?
well, Texas, Michigan plays at Ford Field in Detroit.
Right. All right, my last question. A lot of people like to ask this question in general because I think it hurts national teams. Will we see national teams ever play more Memphis teams or even Knoxville teams in the regular season just to get their guys ready for their not only there for their region game but also for playoffs in general?
You're starting to see more of it. So I do think that it could definitely happen. Um, One thing that hurts, and it kind of hurts on the Memphis side, is the Memphis regions are big regions. You know, you have 18 regions, which only allow for 2 to 3 non-region games, um, and it makes it more difficult to schedule some of those teams that may be in the 615 area or, in East Tennessee. But the teams that have been able to do it are the bigger schools. We've seen 5A with Beach and Collierville played a 2 game set. Beach and Farragut out of Knoxville have played a 2 game set. Uh, you're starting to see it with the bigger schools. From a cost standpoint, it's a little bit too much for the smaller schools, just because of the travel cost. But I do think that it's something that could continue to increase as time progresses.
Man, great work as always. Appreciate your insight. Where can people keep in contact with you or just follow your high school article slash podcast slash game coverage?
Yeah, we're all the way across the board: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the way across the board, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. It's all, every handle is at 615 preps. And just, we appreciate you having us on. And just if you want to visit our page, just please like, subscribe, favorite, comment. We enjoy talking with anybody that's got questions statewide. I know we are 615 preps, but we do follow high school athletics statewide. So,
Well, Cameron Reid joins me on Inside the Lines playoff round 3 edition. Like we talked about, stay warm, folks. You're going to definitely need the blankets and coats and definitely the hot chocolate and coffee this Friday night because across the state, like we talked about, it's going to be like in the 30s and 40s at kickoff because everybody stay safe travels. If you're traveling across the state today, 2 or 3 hours even, just good luck to all area teams, not only the 615, but all on the 901 as well, and even the 865 across the state because most teams are going to be disappointed because this is our last high school football game in general. So good luck to all the area teams across the state of Tennessee. Cameron Reid joins me on Inside the Lines. Thank you for everybody listening on 4 Star Sports Media. This is Jonathan Sturdivant. And again, Cameron Reid, appreciate your time.
yes, sir. Thank you for having us, John.
No problem.